We're back again with another lesson. My name's Molinaro-Thompson, drummer for Terrence Simeon and Funk Griot. And like I said in my previous video, I wanted to put together a lesson on exercises that I do to help my coordination and separating my limbs from my mind and freeing up my playing. We're really going to be working out of Ted Reed's Syncopation book, and mainly pages 34 to 45. So starting on this page here. My book's all beat up. Got this when I was a freshman in college, and I've pretty much been working out of it consistently ever since. So these exercises were taught to me by Bob Galati, and he uses these exercises and how I've implemented them in my own playing and how I feel they've helped me. It's not to teach you language, it's not to teach you comping, it's not to teach you phrasing, or even how to listen or how to feel. The main idea behind it is to teach you how to separate your mind from your limbs and not allow the troubles that coordination gives you to limit and box in creatively your mind. Because when you're improvising, especially in a jazz context, Black American music context, you don't want your mind to limit what you're playing. You want to be totally free. You want to be able to flow in and out of ideas, flow around the drums, in and out of different things. So what this has mainly helped me open up is my left hand and my right foot, the snare drum and bass drum limbs. Because the ride cymbal and the hi-hat, the right hand and the left foot, are gonna stay constant throughout this. The classic spang spang-a-lang, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1 pattern on the ride cymbal, and then 2 and 4 on the hi-hats, essentially for the whole thing. And then all the different exercises are gonna come into play between the bass drum and the snare drum. So when you turn to page 34 of Syncopation, you'll see 12 different exercises of one measure that are repeated 4 times. And then same when you go to 35 and a couple of next pages after that. And the simplest version that Bob Galati showed me was this, and it's gonna be the short notes in the left hand and the long notes in the right foot. So any eighth notes are going to be in the snare drum, and any quarter notes are going to be in the bass drum. So that sounds like this: 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so on. What you want to do is really just get the feeling of that, get the feeling of the melody that's happening. And feel what that sounds like. Even though that statement doesn't really make sense, I think drummers kind of understand what I'm saying when I say that. So the second option you're going to do is you're going to fill in triplets with your bass drum and play the written part with your left hand. So just that rhythm, the now it's kind of a messing with your mind a bit because you're playing something that's not written and you just have to feel where the bass drum is going to fill it in. So that's what this is going to sound like. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And so you want to play that whole page down, and obviously we're going to be moving forward in the book, and that's really when it's going to get tougher, so we'll cover that in a sec. So now the third variation is going to be the opposite of that, flip it. So you're going to play the written part in the bass drum, and you're going to fill in triplets with your left hand. So that'll sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it'll sound like this when you play it with the whole kit. What I find tough about this one specifically is that my intuition is telling me to fill in all the notes. Like that, but there's going to be some wonky patterns that happen. And once you start to move farther into the book, like on pages 35, 36, and then once you get into the 40s when they're no longer patterns, they're changing each bar, so you really have to stay focused, is on the ties. Because the ties for me, when I was first learning it, really messed me up, because you see an eighth note and you're like, oh, that should be the snare, but because it's tied to something, the length of it indicates that it should be a bass drum. So a perfect example of that is going to be number 19 on the next page, page 35, and that's going to sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So because of that tie, you have a quarter note there, even though visually it just looks like an eighth note. That's not the way it's felt. So if we flip ahead in the book a little bit, we're going to get to page 38. And for me, that's really where most of my work gets done. 38 to 45. Those previous couple pages are just to kind of introduce the concept, get the feel of it. But 38 is when you start to have change each bar. And when you're starting to read something new every bar, and especially when you're filling in all the ghost notes, all the triplets, whether it's in the bass drum or the snare drum, it gets really tricky because none of that's written out. So you have to feel it, you have to get used to what certain phrases look like, and then just be able to interpret them. And then you can start to orchestrate them around the drum set, especially the left hand moving to the toms, moving to the floor tom, things like that. So I've pretty consistently tried to work on this stuff. There's been some gaps when I haven't worked on it as much due to other musical necessities that I've had to work on more. But overall, I've seen a massive playing difference. And separate my limbs, not just from each other, but from my mind. And because when you know, oh, I don't know if I could hit this thing or whatever, even though you might not consciously be thinking that when you're playing, because you shouldn't be thinking, oh, I want to play this triplet phrase, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. It should just come out. The more confident you are in your limbs' abilities to just do what you feel, the less limited your mind is going to subconsciously be when you're playing. And that is an E and MT guarantee. That was so corny and dumb. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson to start working on some different things, to challenge yourself during all this quarantine. Nobody's gigging, so you might as well try some wackier stuff. So I'll see you guys next time.